All right, part two. Going on. You'll see I built a little chase here. This is our vertical stack, and this is our main trunk, our duct trunk, feed trunk, supply trunk that goes all the way from the basement up into the attic and then distributes all our heating and cooling air from the furnace and air conditioning coil to the upstairs part of the house. I wrapped it all with insulation, taped it, masticed all the joints. If you're a person who is into efficiency and trying to do things at least the best you can, it would be worth it if you live in a pre-existing house, taking a moment and going down in your mechanical room and look at your ductwork and see if there's any exposed sheet metal duct. Are all the joints either taped, or ideally there's a product that's called joint mastic or joint compound for ductwork. It's really called mastic, but it's a latex based product and it's kind of like putty. You paint it on real thick and it basically just air seals the duct so that you're not leaking air in places you don't want. Nobody's ever going to be inside this chase, so it does no good for us to leak hot or cold air into it. So very elaborately painted it up, and I think actually there's a blog post about that. I have this conduit here that I ran just for future usage. This is a 1.5 inch conduit, and it is glued together so that I can plug it down in the basement so that it won't leak air from the attic. But anyway, I just ran this all the way from the basement to the attic for any future runs that we might need to do of electrical or media or whatever other kinds of things might come up. We'll talk about this in a minute. You'll see we have a couple of little mini cans here in the kitchen too that'll be here. There'll be a little peninsula countertop that'll come out with kind of a seating bar area. And there'll be a slightly lower switch so you can turn it on and off. It's at the same height as the other switches that are in the kitchen. So if you were sitting down, you can turn the lights on. It'd be a little bit better height than it is. You'll notice that this one is quite a bit higher. I like them high. I'm a tall person. So kitchen outlets, nothing special there. A couple fixtures here. One that is a three-way switch for the over cabinet, so you can, or the over the peninsula lights. You can turn the lights on over here from either side, which is nice. You don't have to walk around. And then another switch for under cabinet lighting. I've got these low voltage wires here that are routed through the foam for low voltage, so that we can have strip lights under our cabinets when we're all said and done. Kitchen sink, rough in. We'll maybe talk a little bit about this kind of elaborate vent. You'll notice that there's a pipe here that's plugged, and this is the actual waste pipe on this side. And this pipe runs around and curves and comes back down and goes through the floor, and we'll talk about that when we get downstairs. Because of the framing, it was really tight, so you'll notice that some of these pipes are really close to the outside of the wall. In a perfect world, that wouldn't have worked out that way, but that's what we had to do, so there we are. Have a switch here for over the sink lights. I just opted to put 2 lights in, and we'll have a dimmer on them so we don't have to run them really bright, but I don't think you can have enough light when you're cleaning things. And then a secondary switch for if we ever want to add a garbage disposal. Now these are just countertop height outlets. And then this will be a box for a microwave, so this will be an outlet. And then this is a utility outlet for the range. If you have a gas range, it'll have a pilot light. Or I should say it'll have igniters that need electricity, as well as if you have a clock or anything like that. They need a 110 service. This little wire sticking out here will be for our range hood. I think that's most of it in here. We'll take a second and talk about these black, magical black areas. Because of the way that our home is constructed, with this big beam through here, which prevents us from running any ducts or wires or anything through this part of the ceiling, it becomes very difficult to run supply and return air ductwork. So we opted to take the ducts upstairs into the attic and then distribute them, and they're all insulated. But for every forced air system, you have to have what they call return air, or some people call makeup air, or in the years past it was called a cold air return. It's got a couple different names. But basically the concept is that since a furnace is pushing air inside a concealed or an enclosed space, right? For it to push air, it has to be able to draw air. it goes both ways, right? So there's a vacuum that's created, and so your return air is where your furnace actually draws the air from in order to blow, and you want to be able to create a sort of a cycle or a continuous flow of air within your home. So, ironically, it actually worked out really well for our situation. The main floor heat will come from, and cooling will come from the floor. The upstairs heat and cooling come from the ceiling, and so you want the return air to draw all of your heated and cooled air and get it to mix within this space. So, sort of perfectly, all of our return air ends up being at about ceiling height of the main floor, so it's about halfway through the house. So we'll have all of the hot and cold air coming up from down here and way up high, and the return air is going to be drawing it all the time toward these openings. The black paint is so that when we put a grill over that when it's all done and it's sheetrocked, you won't be able to see into that space. It'll be dark and you won't see that there's a 2x4 behind it. But we basically created a duct, which by the time they sheetrock this, will be completely concealed within this little space. And you'll notice there's a cutout all the way through the floor into the basement. And then he'll block that off, my HVAC contractor, and then the air will just draw down through this opening and out through this and through the upstairs. I'll show you where that works here in a minute. And then kind of interestingly, it's actually going to draw through the stairwell on that side and through that 2x4, that joist bay, and through this joist bay on this side of the dining room. And then on the inside of the stairwell opening, the return airs are going to have vents on this side. And then what's going to happen is that there's a big double wide cold air return, or return air duct that's framed right into this opening. So the furnace is going to draw air here. There will be a door right where Jenna's standing right now. With that closed off, there's no immediate areas for the furnace to draw air from, and so it's going to be forced to draft air through these registers, which in turn comes out through the upstairs of the house, plus the one that we built. And so it really should be a pretty good system, I think, hopefully. So why don't you come down here quick, we'll show you what all's happened in the basement. This is a pretty incredibly different space than it was when we first started. I'd encourage you to go back and look at the blog posts or the YouTube videos of the mystery noise, the Rafiki, I believe is what Jenna entitled it on the blog post. But it's pretty hard to believe, looking at those videos of that space, that this is the same room. Obviously, you've seen that we got a new electrical service, but obviously now we got a lot more breakers in it, a lot more wires run. Not everything's terminated, but we got enough to make things function. I have the water hooked up, so we have a water meter now. Wow. So I have some roughing things to get done. This is will be our main incoming gas line, and then this is all of our media connections, internet and coaxial cable for TV. We had the walls and the rib joist down here insulated. My expert home builder that gives me all my consultation informed me that apparently the rim joist after the attic of the house, the rim joist is like the second highest area of heat loss and cool loss in a home. So getting this insulated is really significant during a project. I'll take you through this real quick. How are we doing on time there?
We have 1 more minute before we have to start another video.
Okay, I'll make this real quick. So we talked about that bow vent upstairs, which was the one for the kitchen sink. So you'll see we have a waste line right here, and the other pipe, which is the vent, follows it. They tie back in together, and then I'm able to run the vent separately up through the house, because otherwise, where the kitchen sink was, there would have been no other practical way to run the vent out. And if you don't know anything about plumbing, if you've ever tried to pour something out of a container that's sealed on the back side, you know, it kind of gurgles on its way out. If you poke a little hole in the back to let air follow in underneath it or behind it, you know, it eliminates that back pressure, and that's what venting is all about. So this is the solution to our impossible to vent kitchen sink. And with that, I'll see you in part 3.